Today we're going to be looking at how to mix color to suggest light. And I have 4 key ideas that'll help us get there. Now, to help us think about how to mix colors to suggest light, we're going to take a look at the artwork of Henry Martin. He was a French neo-impressionist painter, born in 1860 and died in 1943. And he was a pointillist. In other words, he used short, choppy, pointillistic type brushwork, which I'm not crazy about because it all looks the same. But in his landscapes and his figures, he really captured light well. And I want to look at 4 different things to help us understand how to suggest light in our painting. And that is value, darks and lights, color temperature, which is warm and cool color, intensity of color, and relationships. Now, without values, you're not going to have anything, the dark and the light. If you don't get your values right, your light's the right value, your dark's the right value, it won't work. And then color temperature is more important than color. In other words, the grass here in this painting, or his shirt, or the foliage in the trees, I can really pick any color I want. What matters is the color temperature. Do I make that color warm or cool to suggest the light? And then intensity, we think if we're going to paint light, we better get color straight from the tube, but not so. We want a variety or a good relationship of intense colors and more muted, less saturated colors. So more saturation and less saturation. And I find it better to keep my colors at least slightly muted, slightly less saturated. So at the end of the painting, I can add the stronger or strongest color where I want it. And number 4, the relationships. Really important, because if we don't have the right relationships of the darks and lights in relation to each other, or the right color relationship, something is warm or cool compared to what's around it, then the painting won't work either. And what we want to stay away from is isolating an area, like looking at his hat and isolating that hat and just try and copy the value and color temperature by looking at it. You don't want to do that. You want to look at the colors around it. So value-wise, I want to look at the light colors around the hat to see how dark the hat is. That makes it, or that puts it in relationship with each other. And same thing with color. This hat is cool compared to the lights around it. So everything is darker light or warm and cool compared to what's around it. And that's the key. So again, value, color temperature, intensity, and relationship. And before we look at his paintings, I want to look at a color wheel real quick. Ignore this thing in the middle. And the warm colors on the color wheel, and the color wheel is what we use to mix all our colors. The color wheel is really important. Every time I mix a color, I'm usually thinking of a color from the color wheel. I'm not trying to match a photograph, or even if I'm outside, I'm not trying to match what I see. I'm thinking of a definite color from the color wheel, and then I can modify it, make it darker, lighter, warmer, cooler. Anyway, on the color wheel, we have warm colors, yellow, green, all the way to red, orange. And those are the warm colors because they all have a little bit of yellow in them. Then the cool colors are blue, green, all the way to red, violet. And they're cool because they all have blue in them. So cool and warm, that's the color temperature. My sunlit areas are going to be more on the warm side, and the shadows are going to be more on the cool side. Now, these colors aren't great on this color wheel. Can never find a good color wheel that kind of fits oil paintings, but just the idea of the 12 colors on the color wheel. Now that leaves us with straight green and straight red, and they're neutral for the most part. They're neither warm nor cool. If I want a warm red, I have to add yellow to it and make a red-orange. Or if I want a cool red for a shadow, I add blue to it for a red-violet. Same thing with green, add yellow to yellow, make it yellow-green, warm it up, add blue to it to make blue-green to cool it off for a shadow. So that's the idea of color temperature. Now let's get to the paintings. And there's a lot of them here, so I'm going to kind of breeze through them here, but you can see the strong temperature contrast, cool shadows, warm sunlit areas. And the values, you have the really bright light wall of the house, kind of a half tone of the steps, half tone on the shadow or slightly shadow side of the house, not quite shadow, half tone down here, light here. Same thing with the greens. It's got about 3 different values, a dark, light, half tone. Simplify those values to make it easier. And then the relationship, something is dark or light compared to what's around it. And there's some warmth in these shadows, but the shadows are still cooler than the warm light areas, sunlit areas on the wall. And we have to be careful when we're mixing the lights. Don't add too much white. Too much white added to this yellow wall would make it look chalky. You would lose that warmth in it. So be careful with the white. White's really necessary, obviously, to get the right value, but don't overdo the white. Here's another one again. It's a backlit scene. And the first thing you always notice in all his paintings is that strong separation of dark and light, warm and cool. And the relationship between them. Something is light or dark compared to what's next to it. He's not isolating an area and trying to match it. He's comparing the shadow of the wall with the sunlight on the roof. That tells him how dark to go with the wall. Another coastal scene here. Again, shadows all kind of hold together. There's a variety of color within the shadows on the walls in here, the walls of the houses, the shadows in the field, but they all hold together as a shadow. There's some warmer colors in the shadow, but predominantly it's violet with some orange. It's blue-green with some yellow-orange in it. And down in here is probably a muted blue, real light blue in the shadow with some red and orange in it. But it's the value relationships that make it work in the color temperature relationships. And if we think about value, let's look at this first. Again, it's the combination of the dark and light and the warm and cool color that makes this work. But let's look at the value separately. Now here it is without color, and it works. If it didn't work, then nobody would do pencil drawings or pen and ink drawings or etchings to suggest light because there's no color involved. But the dark and the light does work. It does suggest the light. And these values make the colors work. I can get really good color, but if the value is wrong, it's not going to work. So again, values are the underpinning to the color, but when we add color to this, it really puts it over the top. So you can say value does all the work, but I tell you, color, that warm and cool color temperature is what makes something look truly sunlit. This is halfway there, but this takes it all the way home there. The warm and cool relationship on the gate here, a really warm, pale yellow against a light, slightly muted blue. And the dark and the light on the green, you got yellow-green in the sunlit area, blue-green in the shadow. He's really pushing color temperature quite a bit, as well as the dark and light value. There's also, for the intensity, he has quite a bit of strong color and muted color. He's got some complementary colors here within the warm green to kind of mute it slightly. Same thing in the grass. He's got some pretty strong yellow, red with a touch of violet to get this kind of yellow-green. Some of it's more muted and some of it's a lot stronger. And that combination is what I think makes the color a bit more realistic really suggests the light, rather than everything being real bright straight from the tube or everything being too dull to where it doesn't look like sunlight. So it's that balance, that relationship of really strong, intense color with some muted color. Let's go back to this. Now, what I like about his paintings, he does a series of paintings of the same thing, kind of like Monet did with his haystacks, cathedrals, poplar trees. He did same scene, different lighting conditions, different time of day, time of year. And he's doing the same thing here. So he's got this garden scene with the gate and these same 4 trees. And this is backlit. The sunlight is coming from the front over on the left side. Somewhere over in here is where the sunlight is. And that gives him a certain set of colors, color temperature, certain set of values, and he has to find the right relationship with it. Then we have this one, where it's a bit more midday. Looks like same time of year, but the lighting's different. As you can see in the sky, it's slightly cloudy. Some sunlight, but not real strong. So it's kind of a little bit of sunlight coming through, but not bright, intense sunlight. So it gives you a different set of values, relationships, a different set of color temperature relationships, and a bit more muted color along with some stronger color. You can see that in the grass. Some strong yellow-green, slightly muted yellow-green. Also got bits of subtle color change with the red, the blue. And it's all that same pointillism. But, you know, if you have a good composition, good values, and color relationships, it's going to work. And here's the other one with the maybe a little bit later afternoon or maybe mid-morning, some shadows here. Again, the values change. The relationships in the values change. The color temperature relationships change. And then we'll jump down to this one. Now it's, I don't know what time of day it is, but sun's in a different spot, different set of color relationships, value relationships, more violet in the background, more slightly muted greens to yellow to orange green, reds, red orange in the grass. But you get a strong sense of what the light is doing. And then this one, I don't know. Now the sun is directly behind the viewer or the painter, and it kind of flattens things a little bit. The shadows are smaller on the trees, makes them look slightly flatter, but you're getting full effective sunlight on the gate now, on the trees, some cast shadows on the ground. Now these cast shadows are really blue to blue-green. Now the sunlit grass is a really high-keyed or high-value yellow to yellow-green. So you can see the colors change in the grass as the light changes. And he does a great job with that. You can really see where the sun is, what direction it's coming from, and how it's affecting everything. Then he's got a sunset here. Beautiful colors. And again, value relationships. Not so much pointillism here. A little bit different, longer brush strokes. But he really knows how to set up his color relationships. And the fact, I mean, he seems to just have painted a lot. And that's how you learn about creating those relationships between the color, temperature, and the value, and the relationships between the intensity of the color as well. Again, kind of a backlit, everything that's upright, like the building here, strong shadow, nice colors in the shadow of the water, the reflection. Really does a great job. And this just goes to show that, well, I think brushwork is very important. How you apply the paint can give the painting a certain look or mood. Now here's another kind of a series of paintings. I got 3 of these from this one. Here he's added some figures. Color's a lot more intense here. He doesn't have as much of that relationship of really strong color and muted color in this one. Now it's a bit more strong. Not as many muted colors except in the post and in the shadows a little bit, but the flowers, the figures, really strong, strong color. But again, you do understand the sense of light that's going on there. Whoops, this one here. Again, the same area, different time of day, more sunlight hitting the posts now, figure and shadow. Not so much pointillism in this one either. But really nice color relationships. Some really strong color, some more muted color. A lot of cool, a lot of warm, a lot of dark, a lot of light. Another one here, very nice. Same area, no figures in it. Different time of day. Looks like same time of year though. Now here's a early morning or late afternoon painting of a garden scene. And again, good value relationships, good color temperature. Even though this building, this wall of this house is warm, it's a yellow-orange wall. But it still stays in shadow because there's enough blue or violet in it that makes it look cool compared to the sunlit areas like the yellow-green of the grass, the kind of muted yellow, blue-green sky. The sunlit areas are a lot warmer than the shadows, even this shadow of the house. So it's all about relationship when it comes to warm and cool. I can have a lot of warmth in the shadow as long as it looks cooler than the light areas. And here's the same scene, different time of day. Again, you look at it, shadows are a little lighter because the sun is a little higher in the sky. And just beautiful color relationships. The wall in the sunlight has a lot of slightly grayish yellow, pale yellow in it. So you don't have to have straight yellow to make the wall look sunlit. Again, nice sunlight in the background now and shadow in the foliage here. Just great value contrast and color temperature contrast. Another beautiful design, good composition. You see the reflected light in the shadow here, but that still stays in the shadow. Even though it's really warm, it's not as warm as the wall. The wall has more yellow, yellow-orange in it, and there's a bit of violet or green, something cooler, blue-green, something cooler to knock that orange down slightly so it stays in the shadow. A lot of nice reflected light in there. The reflected light goes a long way to really show how the light is bouncing around into the shadow. Same thing here on the doorpost. Really nice job. I have no idea about the size of these though. Here's more of a cloudy day on this bridge. So on a cloudy day, the colors are going to be more local. In other words, the green tree is going to be kind of green. The yellow, yellow-orange, yellow-green lighter tree is going to be yellow-green or yellow-orange. Bridge is more of a muted yellow to yellow-orange. Green grass. Because there's no direct sunlight to push the sunlit areas really warm and the strong cast shadows to push those cooler. So there's not the temperature contrast here, but there is the value contrast. And that's what shows the light here, or the type of light, that really cloudy daylight. And that's the real dark tree against the light tree, dark mountain against the light sky, light bridge against the darker trees, and so on. And then here's the same scene with early morning sunlight or late afternoon. The sun is low. Now suddenly the bridge is a lot cooler because it's in shadow. The sunlit areas on the tree is a lot more yellow, yellow-orange because of the sunlight. More blue, blue-violet, muted reds in the shadow of the water, and more yellow-orange, orange, red-orange in the water. Some blue also in the water because it's reflecting the sky. But overall, the water is warmer in the sunlight, cooler in the shadow. And the reason it's warm, ooh, got that zoomed in too much. The reason the water looks warm is, one thing is because the sun is hitting this area, but also the water is real shallow and we're seeing the warm kind of reddish orange dirt underneath. And then the blue is where the water's reflecting some of the sky, and that cools it a little bit. But nice reflected light underneath here. A beautiful job. Again, it's all about that value and color temperature. Another series, or at least two here, of this fountain. You can see the sunlight is coming somewhat midday. The light is slightly low. Then on this one, now the sun is on the other side, and we're looking into the sunlight, and everything that's upright, the wall, the figure, the trees, the short wall here around the pond, that's all dark because of the backlighting. These aren't getting any sunlight. Backlit paintings, everything that stands upright is darker. And then the flats and slanteds are a little bit lighter. But again, the color temperature, he didn't push the temperature as much on this one. In other words, the shadows aren't quite as cool and the sunlit areas aren't quite as warm. But he still has a warm-cool relationship between the sunlit areas and the shadows. The sunlit areas are still warmer and shadows are cooler. He just didn't push them like on some of the other paintings. Like on this one. Here you can see the shadows are a lot bluer in the trees, bluer on the fountain, the shadows. Sunlit areas are a little stronger orange, red orange. Great suggestion of light. And also the thicker paint. Thin paint doesn't have quite the impact. If you're trying to get that contrast of warm and cool, thin paint won't do it as much. Another one here, just real nice color value relationships. Almost kind of abstract. I mean, you know it's a bridge and river and trees and sky, but it could be an abstract too if you were to knock down the edges and just use shapes. And nice subtle relationship changes, like on the sunlit wall. It's a little darker here and a little lighter here. A little bit of value change. It's all somewhat the same sunlit area, but it gives a little bit of change in there. Nice color change in here too. A couple more here. It's a nice big view of a valley, there's a town in there. The shadow, he really pulls the shadow together here in this street and trees and houses. You can see the shadow pattern starts down here and winds around and goes through the mountains. And that really holds the shapes together. It simplifies it. And then the sunlit areas too are kind of pulled together. They're all warm colors, yellow, yellow-green, orange, yellow-orange, yellow-green, orange, and a lot of blue, blue-violet, red-violet into the shadows. Again, bit of a cloudy day here. Still some sunlight because you can see the cool shadows in the sunlit areas on the building and the hills, but it's not as strong. You can see there's some clouds that are kind of making the sunlight a little bit hazy. So even there, he's suggesting that type of light. And he does a great job. So remember, value, color temperature, intensity of the color, and then the relationships between those four things. Hope that was helpful. If you would subscribe and give us a like, that would be great.